What's rich to you? 60 million, 80 million? Oh, wait, how about 90 million or 124 million? Whatever it is, I'm about to tell you how to get it, how to get rich. I read this book by Felix Dennis called How to Get Rich. It's an old book. It's been around for a while, but I never actually got into it, and I heard a bunch of people talking about it, and it was really, really good. It's a brutally honest take on what it's really like being rich and how to actually get there. The author was a multi-millionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars, let's just say. And he wrote this book in his older age after he had all of his experience. So he had an opportunity to look back on his life, all that he's accomplished, and tell us really the real deal. Like, what would he change? What would he keep? And really what you need to do and how you need to be to kind of get there. So I want to break down this book. I was gonna do one video, but I need to do two. Why? Because there's a lot of meat in this book, a lot of good tips. Some of them you might have heard before, but it doesn't hurt to get a reminder. And then also the best part of this book to me was the negotiation tips. And there's like a whole lot of details there. So I'm gonna put that in a separate video. So you'll just come back for that. But make sure you stay to the end because I'm gonna go into like 8 different tips that he gave during the book on how to get rich and also how to stay rich. So let's get into it. Number 1 is to get ready to fail. Okay, I know you've heard this before, or maybe you haven't, but get ready to fail. The path to success is riddled with failures, right? Failures after failures after failures. The idea is that your wins are big, but your failures, the way to get through them, get over them, get past them is to not sit and get stuck in a rut, not feel sorry for yourself, but to take the failures on the chin and then move on, right? Just learn from them, take them as lessons, and then move on. Period. Number 2 is that you have to have a burning desire to be rich. You have to obsessively want to be rich. This is what he says. And this was a good highlight for me because I realized like there is a difference between people who they have some money, right? And there are people who are uber rich. And how do you become one of those Bill Gates, one of those Steve Jobs, those what is the guy's name? The Amazon guy. You could say Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. That's what I was thinking of. How do you become that? You got to be obsessed with it. And so that's not necessarily a price that everybody's willing to pay, right? He talks about, you have to want it more than anything in the world, more than your family, more than your friends, more than, anything, right? So you have to be willing to give up things. You have to be willing to be brutal, to be aggressive, to be not nice, right? You have to want to be you have to be willing to be brave in a whole lot of situations, deal with the pain, deal with, facing and confronting things in order to actually get there. He's like, you're not necessarily going to get there without it. So I have a kind of slightly different school of thought. But who am I? I'm not uber rich. But he mentions in the book about being laser focused on your goal. And I think that if you're laser focused on your goal, that you can achieve uber richness if you don't falter, if you don't, allow things to get you off course, if you don't allow doubt to stop you, if you don't allow things that other people say or how other people are going to feel, et cetera, et cetera. If you're laser focused on your goal, then I do think you can get there. But I think what he's saying is that in order for you to be laser focused on your goal, you have to want it more than anything, anyone, no matter the circumstance. And what I like about this book is that he's not glorifying this path, right? He's not glorifying the person who you need to be. He's like, listen, if you want it, that's what it's going to take. And he does kind of make people think like there's a number that's enough along the way that you don't necessarily need, right? So one of his best advice in the book is that he says that if I were to do it all over again, I would have got as rich as possible. He had a number in his head that, he says 60 to 80 million, which today would be 95 to 125 million. He says that, I would have just gotten as rich as possible, hit that 80 million as young as possible if I could have. And then I would have just enjoyed life. Like I would have stopped going after more and more and more. And he says that you just end up wasting money, right? You end up wasting life and wasting money because of the way that he sort of lived his life. And we'll get into that. I don't want to jump ahead. Essentially, find your enough number, get there, and then enjoy life, right? That's one way to look at it. The other way is if you're like, no, I need to be super filthy, stinking rich and I want it more than anything, well, then now you know what you have to do. I actually was having a conversation over the holidays with my family, and they were saying how if in order for you to be a billionaire, you have to do something wrong. Like you have to wrong somebody, or you have to do something illegal or something like that. You can't just be a straight and narrow good person and get there. And I was really annoyed by that because I'm like, I don't think that. I don't think that is true, that you have to be wrong or evil or do something bad to get there. But I mean, this book is kind of saying like, listen, you can't be nice, right? So some people are going to be offended by your path. Not that it needs to be illegal, but you're going to offend people. And so if you want it, then just know that's what you're going to have to do. The third tip that I learned was think big, but act small. So this is where he was talking about basically how to keep your money, essentially, like once you create your wealth. So he's like, have big ideas, think big, think bigger than that, and then bigger than that, right? Go after it, no problem. He's like, but once you are on your journey to wealth, act small, like be humble in your behavior. He talks about, being focused on sex, drugs, and rock and roll and how it ruined his health and his relationships and everything like that. And so he's like, if I were to do it all over again, what I would have done was not spend my money frivolously. Like he will spend hundreds and thousands of dollars partying, drugs and all this other stuff. And he's like, I could have been as rich as I wanted to be way sooner if I wasn't wasting my money on all these other things. So he's like, if you have a number, focus on that. Don't focus on the shiny things. Don't focus on partying. Definitely think big. Definitely be like a pioneer and an innovator, but just act small. Just be humble. You don't got to be flashy. And I thought that was great advice. I would have loved to have that advice very early on. Number 4 was don't care about the opinions of others. I know you probably heard this before. I've said it before. It's been a journey for me to not care about the opinions of others, but he's basically saying like, listen, people are always going to have something to say, but don't care about the opinions of others, not your friends, not society, not your family. If they fall into that bucket, right, that's holding you back, you want to make sure that you're focused on your goals, right? Not focused on other people's opinions or being accepted. Because most times when you're trying to do such a thing as be rich, right, most everyday people are not going to understand your drive. They're not going to understand the decisions you make. They're not going to understand your sacrifices you make or the strategies that you use. They're just not going to understand. So there's no reason to be concerned with how these people feel or think about you. As long as you're not harming anybody, like do what you got to do, right? Keep your circle small. Don't try to have a whole bunch of people in your space. And he does say how it does get lonely the higher and higher that you achieve, because you just are not going to be able to hang out with certain people. They're just not going to relate to you, and you're not going to be able to relate to their world. So that was a little bit of a sad part of that. But, he's like, keep your circle small and focus on your goal. And the biggest part of that section is to get rid of negative influences. So that's, with keeping your circle small, but getting rid of the negative influences for people who are doubting you, who are putting negativity or bringing down your energy, bringing down your mood, people who cannot sort of celebrate you as you go on your journey. You got to get them out of your circle. Number 5 is to work your butt off, right? He basically talks about working harder than anybody else, but he also, in a sense, paints it as working smart too, because he talks a lot about delegation. He talks a lot about focusing on your strengths and what you're good at, and then let everybody else do what they need to do, right? Of course, when you're starting, you're going to have to wear many hats, but focusing once you can to delegate as much as you can so you could focus on your strengths. And so that's you working hard, but working smart as well. And he also says to hire people who are smarter than you, because that's basically how you're going to succeed. You need people with the intelligence who don't necessarily want to be you, but want to be great at what they do, and they're better at it than you. Put them in position so that they can help you get to your destination. And the other part of that is being persistent, right? He's like, be persistent. Don't give up when you have challenges. Like try, and try. And he's like, and when things don't work, try a different way to get to your goal. Don't give up the goal. Just try a different angle on how you're going to get to that goal. And also don't be stubborn. Don't continue doing something when you know it doesn't work and it's not going to work and you're just fooling yourself. Only be persistent and continue if you know that success is right around the corner. You just haven't found it yet. So you have to find that balance between persistence and stubbornness and knowing when to be able to quit. But you got to be sensitive to that. And he's like, when you find issues, examine them, examine those issues, and to be able to, overcome them and navigate them. Bottom line, working hard is all about execution. So you have to execute. Ideas are not enough. Ideas are nothing. Don't be proud of your ideas. He's like, be proud of your execution, because that is the thing that's actually going to get you to your destination. Number 6 is to believe in yourself. So if you are not able to believe in yourself that you are able to do it, he says, don't even bother. Like, to be honest, don't bother if you can't believe in yourself. He says, God and destiny believe in you. If you were given the idea, then that means God and destiny believe in you. So therefore, you need to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, then you're not going to be able to get there. And he's like, doubt is going to come, right? Doubt is definitely going to come, but you look at the doubt, you look at the issues, and you navigate those issues. You don't let them necessarily stop you, and don't let the doubts of other people stop you either. So doubt is a warning system that supports your decision making, essentially, right? So you have to trust your instincts first. He says instincts come first, and then due diligence comes second. So like figuring out the how and all that other stuff, you could even delegate that to other people, but your instincts, do what your instinct tells you first in order to surpass any of those doubts. And you just look at the doubts, suss them out, and then keep it going. Number 7, 3 things that I put under the category of how is, one, you have to diversify, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So once you make a little bit of money, start investing in other things. It doesn't have to be the same business. You can start investing in different things that are innovative that you think are going to grow. He says he would have been much richer if he would have done that, but he stuck to just his one field, even though he grew and expanded into other aspects of his field. But he's like, he didn't have to do that. He could have done other things which would have gotten him there, quicker. The other thing about how is ownership. He's like, you have to own versus being an employee, being a manager. You can make great money. Like I said, you can find your rich that's along the way, whatever that is for you. But he's like, you're not going to get uber rich if you are not an owner. So keep as much as you can and own wherever you can, if that's the destination that you want to get to. And then sell before you're tired or you have to. I could have really used this advice a couple of years ago, but sell before you're tired or you have to, because then you can make the smart decision while you're at the top of your game. You could get top dollar, and that could set you on your way to, living the rest of your life happily ever after, if that's what you're doing next. Another how is to always be kind. He says you can be fearless, right, and brutal and brave and bold, but be kind, like be respectful. Don't tear people down or tear people apart, right? And then he's like, always have fun, have a young mindset as much as you can. Have fun, have fun, have fun. He also says, fear nothing and no one, and to get rich and give it all away. Really, that's all these rich people do, uber rich people do, is they get rich and then eventually they have to give it all away, because you can't pass it all on to your children. You have a cap, right? So you have to figure out ways to give it away through charity, through whatever means you're going to do, is to give it all away. So plan that path. There goes the legacy piece. And that's it. I hope those tips were helpful to you on your path on how to get rich. And you might want to pick up the book if you want to get into the details. It's really a good read. And the narrator, I listened to it on audio. The narrator is really, really good in terms of like making you feel what you feel like, what I think the writer wanted to get across. And so you might want to listen to it on audio. My next video, I'm going to talk about negotiations. I learned a lot from this book, even as a lawyer. And I thought it was really, really good advice, because nobody's really good at negotiating, even if they tell you. Everyone is feeling the same thing. So stay tuned for that video, and I'm going to see you next time.